Here we go. All right, everybody, stocks by the numbers, welcome back. And I wanted to do a quick update here. We have earnings coming up soon, well, in about 2 weeks, for STEM Inc., symbol STEM, listed here on the New York. Now, this company obviously has been through some rough couple of quarters, but as we heard right around the time the ball dropped going into the new year, obviously stock started to gain momentum, and we got a new CEO. So a lot of people saw that the stock was beaten up, and they kind of know it's a risk down here because, again, the earnings have been kind of a toss up here. We've been coming in light on the revenue. So we understand we're taking a little bit of a risk here at these levels with this company. However, over the next couple of quarters, we may see that potential turnaround story. We know that we've spoken about the company shifting its focus more into the software side of the industry, which, of course, would be more profitable for them. And we're just waiting now for contracts, deals to come in because we need this revenue to start being generated. Of course, we still have that big backlog, even though they dropped it down a chunk. But in my opinion, I think we need newer future catalysts to come in. But if we look here, we have earnings confirmed for March 4th. Analysts expecting a loss of 20.8 cents a share on revenue of 47.88 million. In my opinion, the revenue is going to outweigh the losses. So you want to see, in my eyes anyway, at least like 45 million in change. You want the company to at least get close, if not hopefully beat this estimate and bring in, 50, 52 million, and then everyone could talk about the potential turnaround story. But the issue is today, obviously, markets dropped. I know we had some data come out that apparently nobody liked, and we started to really fall off big. And you can see markets are down roughly 1.72% across the board. And something like STEM, of course, took a big hit today. Sub 56.5 cents here, dropped almost a full dime today, 14%, and actually dropped below this little support trend line here. And because it was such a big drop, I'm curious to see now if it looks to bounce here going into Monday, because we have this fib level right here at 57 cents. And let me zoom in for you here. You can see this is going from the recent low here on the 13th, top left of the screen, about 47 and a third cent, coming up, touching the bottom of that body right there, of that candle, on the 18th, on Tuesday. And you can see we're basically just kind of sitting right at that trend line, right? And it looked like it was bouncing and holding this support trend line. And then, of course, we had a big red day today, so it chunked down. So that's why with the fib level and this support trend line here, I'm curious to see now if it bounces and gets back above this trend line here of looking like, yeah, like high 63s, 64 cents, and gets back into this upward movement, right? Because we know we have earnings coming up. But the problem is it's going to be not next week, it's going to be the week after, right? So now for this week, even if they want to, they might just like hold it flat and steady at around like 55, 57 cents, and then start to gear it up the couple of days going into earnings. But then again, we had this big climb and breakout here, so that's why if more people are watching this for the turnaround story, we may potentially see the flatness even if markets remain red, and this other trend line as well. I know I'm all over the place, but this low here from the 12th, and you can see that's going across right here to this bottom body of this candle here on the 13th and cutting across. And you can see Monday, if we were to drop down to this level, you're looking at about 51.7, maybe 51.9 cents potentially on another drop down, and then I would expect a bounce as well. But you can see that we had the pop, and then we've kind of been trending downward here, and I drew out this trend line as well from the bottom of the body on January 3rd, 25th, and you can see coming down, touching that body, and look, cutting across essentially right where those tight days closed, touching now the bottom bodies of those candles, and you can see almost there and had a bounce. So basically what this is that if it happens to break down, we're potentially looking at 38, 37, 36 if we come down to this trend line. That's going back from that low on December 20th, 24 to December 24th, 2024 was slightly a higher low. So you have that slight angle coming in, but you can see if markets do really remain red and chunk down for the next week or so, we could potentially see this drop to sub 40 cents. But realistically, this was the top resistance trend line here that I was keeping an eye on. And if we do happen to climb up going into earnings, we could potentially see about 90 cents. If for any reason it happens immediately on Monday, you can see you're at about 91 cents. But that's where the resistance is going to be. Chances are from this level, in my opinion, the stock, I mean, it could get to 90 cents, obviously, and get to this level. But I don't think it should have a breakthrough. And we could potentially see the break up and out and the run maybe to $1 plus, pending on what we get reported, obviously. And again, in my eyes, what you want to see is the fact that we have more deals on the horizon, more revenue potentially coming in. They're still trying to, cut costs and streamline the business more efficiently. And if we come down here, that was about a month ago with the CEO. And we also had STEM enters 5-year agreement with NeoVolt to manage solar portfolio in Hungary. So they announced that about a month ago. Its software will be used to manage the commercial operation of 484 megawatt solar portfolio owned by NeoVolt in Hungary under a 5-year agreement. Financials not disclosed. STEM's PowerTrack web asset performance management tool will monitor, optimize, and control 8 utility scale sites in the country. Company shares popped 9% on the news. Yeah, this was the big breakout. Yeah, that was here. You can see it spiked. Brought it down to the 50s and spiked it right back up to that other key level we were watching of about the low 91s and change. And then we rejected and started to drop back down, because technically it is good news in the long term, but it doesn't immediately help the stock here in the short term, in theory, right? So the good news is a lot of people who, may have said they were down and out. I mean, granted, it is down big, so it still kind of looks that way in the moment. But they did technically a month ago just sign that 5-year agreement that we just read. So it might not be going anywhere, but the problem is we don't know when the numbers are going to pick up and when the company is, really going to get its act together. So when these revenue numbers do start to come in, that's when the stock is going to regain that value. But I mean, they wanted to spike it back up to above $1, in my opinion, to potentially delay that stock split. But we need, even if revenue comes in light, we need positive guidance. We need a positive update. And now potentially, as we saw with the new CEO in there now, I mean, it's only been there for what, like a month and a half, but you never know. You never know what we could hear. But it's just been really rough in the numbers. So STEM has just been tanking consistently. And you can see here, even with the big drop today, oh no, this is weekly. You can see with the big drop today, it wanted, over the last couple of days, it looked like it wanted to hold and bounce off of that 50-day moving average and off of that mid-Bollinger Band. So that's why I was kind of expecting a continued step up back into the 70s and maybe the 80-cent range going into earnings. But again, today was a big red day, so we chunked it down. So we have to look to see if it reclaims that 50-day moving average here on the daily. It's looking at about 60 cents. Which would technically be, higher than, but see, that would be a slight bounce, and that would get it basically right back to and slightly above this short-term trend line here. You can see 60 and a quarter, 60 cents. So that's why it might pop back up to that line and try to make its way above this support trend line and get back in that upward momentum. So we have to see, A, if markets are going to be down big on Monday, and of course, B, how STEM's going to react. But you can see now with the big drop, you have that flattening, a potential curling now on the MACD, which may cause it, if we keep selling off, to cross back to the downside to add to the sell-off. And you can see the bottom Bollinger Band 46. We looked at that bottom support trend line at around 36 cents. So we could still see some very volatile swings here. And again, we were on this downward trajectory, and then we had the breakout. So we could potentially just pull back and make lower lows and get back into that trend as well. So a little bit of a sticky situation right now in the current moment, but we know it's all about earnings. It's all about updates and increasing guidance. And, do they have more deals on the horizon? Are they going to be able to generate more revenue in the next 6 months, 12 months? Are they forecasting big things? So we have to wait and see, as always. And it's just unfortunate because a lot of investors obviously have a pretty sour taste in their mouth because we've been hearing like, oh yeah, everything's great, we're going to turn it around. We've been hearing that for several quarters in a row now, and it actually accelerated and has gotten just worse and worse than it used to be. So that's why now we have the new CEO in, but I know they just got there, so that's why if we don't have an immediate positive report, I could kind of understand that as well. I am curious to see what numbers they actually post for the quarter, but now I think it's going to be the following quarter, right? So we're what? The first week of March, which would bring us out to like the first week of June. So here, right? So we can even if it's a bad report, we can like bring it down here and then bounce it and just like slowly like flatten it out, 40 cents, 36 cents, climb it up into the 40s and 50s maybe going into this earnings report. And then this quarter, after the CEO now has a full quarter, right, under their control, this is where we might see the more positive breakout, the more positive upbeat guidance. And all of a sudden we start gaining momentum. We're approaching this line now, 70 cents. We're climbing up close to $1. We're back above $1. So that might be the breakout quarter. This quarter right now, unfortunately, is kind of up in the air. I wish I had the crystal ball, of course, but given recent trends, chances are the company's probably going to come in the light, right? But you never know. Again, you never know what they might say. We've had a lot of situations where companies, slightly missed on EPS, slightly missed on revenue, may have come out with kind of a mixed report, but they, upped guidance for the fiscal year and boom, the stock runs up after hours, even though we kind of got a mixed report. So you never know what can happen, but hopefully we get some good news. Yeah, that top trend line was back. Getting back to this 200-day moving average looked like it was happening sooner rather than later. And again, we had a big red day today. So 200-day moving average at about 75 cents. Top Bollinger Band at 73. That really shouldn't be an issue. Again, we could potentially still see a run up to that top trend line of around 90 cents going into earnings. Look at that 50-day moving average on the weekly, 91 cents. Right? It just seems like if it could find its footing, it seems like it might want to run back up and retest, get back to that level, and then will either pop or drop, obviously based on those earnings. But it looks like it wants to hold the mid-Bollinger Band here, even on the big drop this week. So that's about 55 cents. So that's why I'm saying as well, we could potentially flatten out for a couple of days, even if markets are red, and this could hold like 55, 57 cents. MACD crossed and was staying up, technically coming down and almost touching. But I don't know, unless markets really sell off consistently, I don't know if we'll see a cross back to the downside on STEM's MACD on the weekly. But of course, anything can happen. Let's check the pivot points real quick. I'll let you go. Again, this was more of a riskier play compared to a lot of the other, smaller cap or micro cap stocks that we've looked at here on this channel. Because a lot of other stocks, even when we started looking at like the Fubos and the Soundhounds, right, they were beating earnings kind of more times than not as of late. Revenue was growing. We were getting, for the most part, positive updates, positive headlines coming out of those smaller companies. STEM was the exact opposite, right? We in theory spoke about the growing backlog and the massive demand that this company was potentially going to have, and all they really had to do was execute. And if that revenue started chunking in, that's why you and I were both speculating at like $2, $3 even, that if this company is actually able to deliver, we can break up and out and we can see, $7, $9, $10 a share, and we can completely turn around this whole situation. But unfortunately, the company just continued to disappoint while telling everyone that, yeah, it's fine, don't worry about it. So, we knew it was, it's a little bit more of a toss-up because the numbers are not steadily growing and are not fundamentally sound like a lot of the other winners that we had on the channel. So, it happens, though. It happens. Again, I was basically kind of just pulling for the company to actually kind of start reporting this chunk up in revenue. So I thought it was going to play out nicely. But obviously the timing was way too early. But again, now we have a new CEO, so anything can happen now over the next 3, 6, 12 months. We have no idea where the stock could go. We have no idea what news could be coming. But you can see a pivot point here on the daily up at 95 cents. Obviously, we got to fight through and get above that moving average first. But the trend line was at about 90, 91. So, I mean, you could, of course, see that potential breakout for a couple of cents to that pivot point. But, you know, you have to cross that bridge when you get to it, really. But it is possible going into earnings. But again, I just really don't know if I'd bank on them posting a good report this quarter. The first good report might come next quarter. So unfortunately, I know a lot of people have been waiting for a while, but you might have to wait just a little bit longer. So we have to wait and see what they say. But here on the weekly, you know, next pivot point up here, $1.84, almost where the stock spiked up here when it initially broke out, right after the ball dropped. So that's why could get back to around that 90-cent range. That's about, you know, half that run up, and then could potentially pop up after earnings. Unfortunately, again, I want to speak highly about it because there could be potential here, but I don't know. It just seems like one of the poor performers out of all the stocks that we looked at here on this channel. But as you know, even if a stock goes down, you know, I don't hide from anybody. I'm always here. I'm always doing updates. And right now, I have to wait and see how the stock performs. Otherwise, we'll do an update after earnings are reported. If we do happen to spike right back up over the next couple of days and all of a sudden it's back at like the 70 range or it's approaching that moving average at like 75 cents, then maybe I'll jump on, I'll do an update, and we can see again how it looks here in relation to some of these trend lines. But of course, I'm pulling for everybody, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll end it there. Once again, Stocks by the Numbers, I want to thank you for stopping by. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please drop it down in the comments section. I'm usually pretty quick to reply. Thumbs up algorithm helps me put more eyes on the channel. And of course, subscribe to the channel. That is our handshake agreement. That is how you help me help you. But more importantly, moving forward, like I always say, I understand that markets are rocky, they're volatile, and they are very uncertain. So I want to wish all of you success. I hope everyone else makes a couple of dollars. Thank you for your time. Have a good day.